When you walk by every night, talking sweet and looking fine, I feel kinda hectic inside. And baby, I'm so into you. Darling, if you only knew all the things that flow through my mind. 'Cause it's just a sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. Okay. I love when good songs are trending because then they get stuck in my head and it's actually good, you know? So, even though one could argue that song is not for all audiences, if you literally just go one more line on, it's not PG-13. It's just a sweet, sweet fantasy, baby. All right, what we're really here for. Hello, welcome, hi. Today, I shall discuss with you the books that I read in August. I cannot believe it's September already. I really needed to have like a pumpkin spice latte in my hand while doing this. I have failed in life. So I actually had 5 books on my TBR that I had 5 books that I did not read from my August TBR. So that's all I'm gonna say. Let's not talk about it. Except for an honorable mention to, and then there were none because I was almost done with this one, but I didn't quite get to it. So this is my honorary mention 13th book of the month that I finished in September because it's September now. So the first book that I finished this month was The Haunting of Alejandra by Castro. I have no words for how disappointed I was in this book. I am not gonna lie, I bought it mostly because the cover is beautiful, but also I was really excited because this is so the main character, Alejandra, is haunted by La Llorona, which is an old like Mexican tale about a girl who I can't remember if she like drowned or what it was, but she is, you know, something that like Mexican families often like talk about to their children. It's like a ghost story, and I thought it was going to be so interesting to see La Llorona haunting someone, you know, and just get a little bit more cultured, like not the usual what we see. However, La Llorona did not do anything. She was spooky for like 3 scenes in the book, did not approach the characters, and did not do anything. And I also was really sad because this book was supposed to talk a lot about like generational curses, and it just felt like, yeah, the previous generations were also cursed by La Llorona, but they didn't speak to each other and they didn't necessarily come together except for the mom and the daughter to kind of solve the issue. And then there was this like therapist who also like focuses on this kind of stuff, and she also was really pointless. I just felt like the book itself, like the concept with the concept of the book was good, but just didn't really come together well for me. So 2 stars. Then I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfeg, and I was so surprised by this book. So this was about a girl who decides that she needs a year of rest and relaxation, so she is just going to drug herself up and go to sleep for an entire year and do nothing else. And she's also seeing this like really like insane therapist who was like out of this world funny because of how absurd she was. And I have to say that I enjoyed this book more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. It was actually kind of funny how ridiculous it was and out of this like world, even though it's obviously like a contemporary fiction novel. I could not expect the things that were going to come, especially the weird things that the therapist was going to say. And also, I just did not believe that the character was going to survive the things that she did, but she did. And it was kind of funny, and I had a good time reading this. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. Also, a note that I was really happy to get to read this book because it's my friend's, one of her favorite books. I love reading books that people I love. It feels like I'm getting a little bit into their head and their heart, and that's what I felt like I did with this book, and I'm so glad I finally read it. She gave it to me for my birthday last year. I know, don't shame me, it took me so long to read, but like I had 94 books on my TBR. And then the crazy thing is that I read like 60 books and somehow had 91 books on my physical TBR. But we won't talk about it. We're not doing that anymore. I went on a book buying ban, and now I'm at 63 books on my physical TBR. So we're slowly making progress. I mean, 30 books in like 2 months is good, right? I think it's good. All right, next I read Boy by Roald Dahl, and I also read Going Solo by Roald Dahl. Boy, both of these are his memoirs. Boy is obviously about his boyhood and childhood, and then Going Solo is like later on in his life when he's an adult. I personally thought that Boy was super interesting. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like Roald Dahl does a really good job of making ordinary life feel larger than life. Like as a kid, everything just seems like so much more exaggerated and like much more funny, much more horrible, much more interesting. I think he does a really good job in all of his books where he's talking about childhood. I gave this book 3 stars. However, Going Solo, it just does not carry over to adulthood at all. I thought this book was so boring. I had to skim it because I don't know. I mean, he does like some of the larger than life things. There were a few funny moments, like when the snake gets into the house, but for the most part, I just didn't have a good time. And yes, I know this is for kids. I know you're not meant to take it so seriously, but I don't know. I didn't have a good time. I gave it 1 star. Moving on. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yaros. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Fourth Wing. So I started off this book and I immediately was having the 5-star feels. I was like, oh my god, dragons and danger. And I think it was honestly the fact that this book was giving Divergent at first that was giving me 5-star feels. I love Divergent. I gave Divergent 5 stars. I don't want to hear any criticism about Divergent, the first book, not the series. But I don't know if maybe I messed up because I really thought this was going to be a 5-star book. And then I saw that Katie Coulson uploaded a video about Fourth Wing. I didn't watch it, but I did read some of the comments and they were making a lot of sense, and it was not in a good way. So yeah, people were just talking a lot about like the language, the dialogue in this book. Particularly the one thing in this book that really upset me is the world building. She does this thing where the main character is like doing something really difficult, and she used to be part of like a scribe quadrant instead of the writer's quadrant. So she was meant more to be a historian over a dragon rider. But then her mom forces her to be a dragon rider, and then she goes off into the writer's quadrant to learn how to be a dragon rider. And in this place, people die very often. It's very much like you can be a writer if you survive. there are moments where she is doing something very difficult, and as a historian, she starts to like say like, okay, this is how I'm going to calm myself down. I'm going to recite like historical facts, except that they're very like common knowledge facts, like the most typical dragons are green dragons and the feather-tailed dragons are often whatever, and like the Basgiath War College is located in the northern hemisphere of whatever. Like, it's very much a cop-out. It's definitely a cop-out because my good sis Rebecca could not figure out where to put that information in the book, and so had the main character just say it to herself. Like, that was weird. I feel like you don't necessarily do that with like basic facts. Maybe you could do that with like more difficult facts, but like basic facts about the world, no, it was a cop-out. Other than that, there were some like really cringe things going on with like the way that the characters feel the dragons' feelings. I do in general love the way that the people interact with their dragons. I thought that was super interesting, and I also was obsessed with the little bit of a love triangle. I thought there was going to be more of that, but that ended fairly quickly. We all hate someone, not going to name names, but if you know, you know. And then also I just felt like the love, I was really excited for the enemies to lovers, but I just felt like they hated each other, or she thought he hated her, and it was very obvious that he didn't and was not going to actually try to kill her. So that was a little bit unfortunate. But then when they finally did get together, it just felt like it was all very physical, and I wasn't really feeling like the emotional aspect. I also felt like she would profess her love to him all the time, and he would not say it back. And I'm like, girl, a little more self-respect, please. So, Fourth Wing. Also, the fact that this is going to be a 5-book series and they're already together makes me really concerned. I don't know if I'm traumatized from ACOTAR, but it's giving ACOTAR, if you know. Hopefully not, but we'll see. All right, I had a lot to say about Fourth Wing. Sorry. Oops. The next book I read was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. This is about a girl whose dad was convicted as a serial killer, and then many years later someone is killing in the same exact way as her father was, and she's kind of surrounded by the women that are being killed, and so she finds herself in the middle of the investigation. I honestly thought that this book was very mid. I gave it 3 stars. Like, I had a good time, but I don't know. Maybe it's because people talked so highly about this book. I had such high expectations, and I just didn't feel like it was that great. I felt like there were some parts that really, almost hit myself in the face. There were some parts of this book that maybe more towards the end that had me wanting to know who the killer was, but in the end I was just kind of disappointed by the way that it all went about. And I also felt like the main character's relationship with a reporter who is not a reporter, podcaster, I think. No, reporter. I'm confusing the 2 books. So I also ended up reading All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham this month. In this one, there's a reporter from the New York Times, and in this one, there's a podcaster. So I felt like some of the things that happened with the reporter were kind of cliche, and I kind of could have guessed that it would have happened, so that was not that fun. Then I didn't read this one next, but I might as well talk about All the Dangerous Things. Same author. This one is about a woman whose son Mason is taken in the middle of the night, and then a year later she is still suffering from the effects of her son leaving. She's very obsessed with his case. She goes to these like crime cons and talks about it in hopes of like keeping the case alive. And in that, she meets a podcaster who is investigating the disappearance of her son as well. So they pair together. I feel like this woman is extremely good at accepting like just dangerous situations that she should not get herself into, but does it anyways. And I also think it's kind of weird that they framed it as like her being like obsessed with the case. Like her son went missing. Do you want her to not be obsessed? There's also she does like go back into like flashbacks of like life when she was a child, and I feel like that was kind of silly if you ask me. Like the only reason that it's there is to kind of throw you off the hint of what's happening now. And I also was kind of disappointed by the ending. I will say that I didn't guess it in this one. I wouldn't say that it was necessarily like predictable, but it kind of was though. Like I didn't guess it, but when I read it, I was like, I should have guessed it. So 3 stars. In between The Flicker in the Dark and All the Dangerous Things, I read The Inmate by Freida McFadden. I wonder, I've been hearing that maybe this was self-published. I don't know. But like the quality of this book is very interesting. It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a regular book. The pages are very white. I don't know if that's just me. But The Inmate by Freida McFadden is supposed to be about a woman who gets a job in a prison, and apparently there's these rules like treat all prisoners with respect, never reveal any personal information, never ever become too friendly with the inmates, except that she already knows one of the inmates, like that's what it's marketed as in the back, and I don't necessarily think that that is like an accurate description. Like the rules do come up, but that's not necessarily what it's about. It's really more about how she essentially put this inmate in the prison because of her like testimony in his case, and now she's like the nurse in the prison and she has to treat him. And I just feel like this woman is incredibly dumb. I am baffled by her ability to allow potentially dangerous men into her and her son's life. It is honestly, truly, insanely wild, the things that this woman does in this book. Okay? And then on top of that, can we talk about the justice system in this book? Okay? Because they are so willing to just like, she said it, so it must be true. Let's put him in jail, folks. It is just so strange. So strange. And so like not believable, and therefore like just not enjoyable. I can't remember if I gave this book 2 stars or 1 stars. But either way, what did I read? I do not think that I will be reading another Freida McFadden book because, yeah. Wow. The Invention of Hugo Cabre by Brian Selznick is about a little boy who lives inside of a like clock in a train station in Paris, and essentially he holds a secret that he must keep secret in order to maintain the lifestyle that he lives. What to say about this book? I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was so beautiful and so different because, so it's chunky obviously, but the majority of this book is like just pictures, drawings, and they're so beautiful. And I think that this book was really unique because it's not like a regular book with illustrations. The illustrations do not go hand in hand with the writing. The illustrations are an extension of the writing, so you really need to pay attention to what's going on in the illustrations to understand the story. Like you wouldn't be able to like skip through them and know what's going on. So I thought that was like really interesting and really beautiful. Although there's a second book and I don't think I'm gonna read it. Like it was nice the first time. I think that's it. That's all I needed. Also, I just noticed this in the back. That's so cool. That's so awesome. That's like the spine and the back cover. Anyways, Invention of Hugo Cabre. Then I read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and I have to admit that when I first started this book, I was like, I did not think I was gonna enjoy it. But as I went on into the book, I actually got very invested in it. I think the thing is that I am an enemies to lovers girly, and yeah, you can't really have enemies in a book that's not a fantasy because obviously like they're not gonna kill each other and stuff. But in this book, they are nemesis. Nemesis. They're each other's nemesis at work, and they are gunning for the same position, and I just ate it all up. Yeah. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I also watched the movie, and it was horrible. It was a horrible time. I don't recommend it. Don't ruin the book by watching the movie, but read the book and get through the first few chapters because it is worth it. We are nearing the end, thankfully. The next book I read was Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. I'm really excited because for my birthday last year, my friend got me a collection of all of Roald Dahl's book, and this was the last one I needed to read to finish them. I thought this book was okay, and I gave it 3 stars. I had a decent time reading it. I thought it was kind of funny, and I also really liked that he incorporated some of his other books in here, so there were nods to The Witches and the BFG and some of his other books, so I thought that was I didn't read these books in a particular order. I just happened to not have any interest in reading this one until the very end, and I'm glad that I did leave it for the very end because I was able to understand some of those hints to the other books. But yeah, 3 stars. And then the last book I read this month is technically not a book, but we're gonna count it because it was reading, okay? And that was Antigone by Sophocles. So this is a Greek play, and why did my brain just blank? This is a Greek tragedy about Antigone, and Antigone is betrothed to Haman, and she's also the niece of Haman's father. So she's betrothed to her cousin, and her 2 brothers fight a battle against each other, and they both die, and one of them is considered to be a traitor for fighting the other one, but she just doesn't think that that's traitorous because they both fought against each other. So my understanding of like Greek beliefs is that like if you do not have a burial, you can't like pass on in the afterlife. You kind of linger here. I don't know if that's necessarily the case here, but that's what I'm assuming because Antigone makes a big deal about wanting to bury her other brother. And the king, Creon, will not let her, and he actually makes it against the law to bury him, but she does it anyways. And then there's like some drama that comes because of that. And I overall gave this 3 stars. At first, I was like super bored. I didn't get it. But halfway through, Haman and Creon get into this argument. And I was like, girl, the popcorn, where is it? It was funny, to be honest. I was like, oh, yes, Haman. Okay. Wow. And then tragedy ensues. it's just very dramatic. Very dramatic. And had a good time. So that was my books that I read in August. And I had a total of 12 books that I read this month. Like I said, read almost every book that I wanted to this month, with the exception of those 5. Although I felt like I had a lot of 3-star reads, so I would say that this was like a mid-reading month for me. Hopefully August will be better. I honestly am just trying to get through my physical TBR, so the books are what they are going to be. I think that's part of the reason too, is because if I'm not super excited for a book, I'm not going to probably rate it that highly, because I'm like forcing myself through it, unless it's like a 5-star read or a good read and it just like totally surprises me. But otherwise, I think that's the problem, is like me being a mood reader. I need to be in the mood to enjoy it. So anyways, I will catch you all when I see you next, and I love you. Bye.